So this this piece is titled Ancestral Intelligence. Right here, you see I repurposed the word intelligence. So the gents, I like to play with words. And it begins with a rhetorical question. What's the value of humanity? And the reason why I ask that, because oftentimes we are infatuated with identification and quantification of things. What I mean is, if you study the story of Adam in traditional Judeo-Christian Islamic faith, it says that the first thing that Adam did was he started to name things, right? And this is the identification of things. But even before he was created, it said that God created the earth in 6 days, right? Heavens and the earth in 6 days. So this is like the quantification of things. So in our current culture, a lot of information is driven by data, right? And then when you have data or data, we have certain like graphic charts. And so on my walk to the Capitol yesterday, it started to rain, and I didn't have an umbrella, so I detoured to my friend Gloria's house on Capitol Hill. We had an amazing conversation, and we were talking about, analytics and data, and she mentioned the psychographic, the psychographic dynamic of data, meaning that if you have two individuals, same gender, same income, same area, same age, what is the difference that makes one get a Range Rover versus one get a hybrid Honda? One drinks alkaline water and the other, drinks Don Julio. The other invests his money in gym memberships. The other invests his money into clubs and lounges and bars. And so for me, beginning with the question, what's the value of humanity, right? So in a world in which we are infatuated by net worth valuations, trillionaires and billionaires, and we have a numerical dollar amount, valuation calculation attached to almost every person, place, and thing in humanity, and even some of the physics have been able to figure out what is the weight of the earth, what is the mass of the earth. So what is the value of humanity? Is humanity priceless, or does even humanity have a cost value, right? Or a dollar numerical value? And so doing a psychographic analysis, right? Psychographic analysis on the study of humanity's lack of humanity. So begin here, what's the value of humanity? In a world where we have now allegedly a trillionaire, and we oftentimes value how we treat ourselves and others based upon the value that we have attached to them. And it's not even the value of their character, their humanity. It's really, what is the net worth value of this person in a dollar amount with their assets minus their liabilities? And this becomes the driving force. So this is the first rhetorical question. And then we go into the psychographic analysis on the study of humanity's lack of humanity. So if there is no value attached to humanity, which I believe humanity is invaluable and priceless, however, what is the psychographic analysis on the study of humanity's lack of humanity? And what I mean by that is that when you do the calculation of man's ancestral experience in the world, I always tell people that human beings are a combination of beauty and brutality. And if we don't have a value on human life and humanity, then we must do a psychographic analysis on the study of humanity's lack of humanity, because we have to do what's called forensic analysis, meaning we go to the origin of humanity, the value of human life, versus all that we see the brutality of humanity towards one another, the splitting of the atoms, the atomic bombs, the nuclear energy versus nuclear weapons. And one can assume the introduction into artificial intelligence and robotics will have that dichotomy too, as the splitting of the atom could be nuclear energy, it could also be a nuclear weapon. And so in this current craze of artificial intelligence, I begin with this rhetorical question, which leads to this analysis, right? Looking beyond just the gender, the race, the class, but doing a very deep analytical forensic analysis on self first and then the collective self, the individual self and the collective self. How do we value humanity as individuals, then collectively, and then doing a psychographic analysis on the study of oneself, on one's lack of value for humanity. And instead of artificial intelligence, I believe this is ancestral intelligence. And it always go back to the Fibonacci sequence, because we can debate, as I often say, we can debate about a lot of different things, and people can have their own beliefs, their own facts to support their own truths. But 0 plus 1 is 1, and 1 plus 1 is 2, and 1 plus 2 is 3, and 2 plus 3 is 5. In mathematics, what I love about it, it brings about absolute solutions, right? Absolute truths that cannot be debated. And so this piece is titled Ancestral Intelligence. I wanted to go with some earthy tones, which is not normal for me, even though I came over top with my normal blue and yellow primaries and secondary colors. But I really wanted to get into making my own earthy tones. So I made like some dark greens, and I took some burnt sienna here and played with that, and I turned some raw umber, some burnt light umber, and I just made a lot of different greens and browns because my ancestral intelligence was calling for me to experiment with earthy tones, which is not normal for me, and then do my normal thing over top. It's just keeping it like earthy and neutral with little pops of that blue and yellow that I love so much. Ancestral intelligence.